Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Life Debates.
Great to have your company. I'm James MacPherson with Danica, Giorgio and Caleb Bond on what was a beautiful Sydney day. How'd you spend it, Danica?
Well, I worked this morning. I did my podcast, so I was here this morning. And Danica Goes Global on News24 YouTube if you'd like to have a look. And then I did go for a walk this afternoon too. And I actually think I got a bit of a tan.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, in one afternoon, Danica, you got a tan.
I feel like I did get a bit of colour on me, Caleb. You wouldn't understand because you're white.
Well, I know. Well, are you discriminating against me for being white? I'll have you up at the racial discrimination mob.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
All right, that escalated quickly. We better get into the show. Here's what's coming up tonight. Should we ban chewing gum? Celebrity chef Jamie Oliver thinks so. He's called on local councils to outlaw chewy, saying it's ruining British streets. The WNBA ties itself in ideological knots over transgender players as a parade of coaches suddenly develops collective amnesia about what the W in WNBA actually stands for. And a bottle shop worker fired for trying to stop thieves has won her job back after the Fair Work Commission reminded her employer bravery is still preferable to cowardice. We'll tell you about that story a little later, but first, every now and then, it's not often, but every now and then the Albanese government accidentally stumbles onto a good idea. And here's one, rare enough that, in my opinion, deserves polite applause. Labor wants to ban gambling advertising on television between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. and on radio during school pickup and drop-off times. A Senate inquiry is currently examining the proposal. Now, the betting industry insists that gambling ads are only about competing for market share. They're not actually trying to persuade Australians to gamble more. It's a bit like Philip Morris claiming cigarette ads were only ever about helping smokers choose between brands. The evidence tells a very different story. According to the Australian Institute of Family Studies, half of Australians already at risk of gambling harm say advertising causes them to gamble even more, and 40% say it prompts them to place impulsive bets. In other words, these gambling advertisements aren't just selling sports bet over Ladbrokes, they're selling the next bet. And that the Labor government recognises gambling advertising is not harmless marketing, I think, is a good thing. And I'm glad they're proposing to do more to restrict it, Caleb.
Whatever happened to personal responsibility? Oh, there's an ad on the television, therefore I must place a bet. I mean, I understand that advertisements are designed to sell a product, but you also then make a decision about whether or not you buy a product. I mean, just because there's an ad for Coca-Cola on television, it doesn't mean I'm compelled to buy Coca-Cola. Just because there's an ad on television for a certain brand of whiskey, well, I rather prefer another brand of whiskey, and I'm going to go and buy that one. Now, I'm not denying that gambling addiction exists, even though the vast majority of people who gamble are not addicted and do so in a completely safe and enjoyable way. But I think to then suggest that that means because some people are addicted to gambling and then they see an ad and apparently that makes them want to go and gamble. I mean, you could make that argument for basically anything. The whole point of advertising is to sell a product. And so, of course, if you advertise a child's toy, the sales of that child's toy might go up. And we might say, well, parents are spending money on that instead of on food that they should be spending to put on the table for the kids. So do we then go and ban all forms of advertising because they may lead someone down a dark path? And my issue really with this obsession with sports betting is that sports betting is not the great evil that everyone thinks it is. The real evil in the gambling world is pokies, right? And if you look at the data, more than half of people gamble in this country. 65.1% of people, according to the Australian Gambling Research Centre, gambled. That was their research in October 2024, so that was in the 12 months prior. Lotteries make up the majority of that. 52.7% of adults say that they bought a lotto ticket. Scratchies then come in at 24.5%. Pokies come in third at 19.8%. Race betting comes in fourth at 17.8%. Sports betting comes in fifth at 12.5% of adults. So it's not that many really. And then Keno's a little bit behind that at sixth on 10.2%. But then you've got to look at the money that is being spent. And the Australian gambling statistics, which are put together by the Queensland State Government, and this is from the 2023-24 financial year, $32.18 billion was spent on gambling in that financial year. Lotteries, which are the most popular version, made up $3.48 billion of it. So very little. Wagering, and that's sports and racing betting combined, made up $8.43 billion. So again, it's a relatively small amount of this total number. But the pokies, which are the third most popular form of gambling in the country, $16.29 billion. And that's excluding money put through pokies in the casino. So all of this moral panic about sports betting, I think, is way overblown. You want to talk about the danger caused by gambling, it is vastly done by poker machines. But we don't have the federal government jumping up and down about the pokies.
I would have agreed with Caleb, Danica, until my boys turned 18, 19, 20, and I've watched that cohort of young men in our world who all love their sport. Sport betting is advertised all the time, and all of those young guys, every single one of them is absolutely fixated on sports betting, some of them losing quite a bit of money, and it's targeted at that age group.
But do you have a problem with a punt every weekend?
No, not at all. But some of them do get themselves into trouble, and we know that it causes all sorts of societal problems. I mean, you would be supporting banning cigarette advertising, wouldn't you?
Oh, well, it's too late. We've done, that's long gone.
But do you think that was a mistake?
No, I wouldn't say it was a mistake.
So you're in favour of banning advertising for certain things, just not gambling?
Well, no. I mean, if I went back to the time that they banned it, I may well have argued against it. I couldn't tell you because I've not thought about that in depth. But I would have thought that the health effects caused by smoking are far worse than the effects caused by gambling on the whole. I mean, smoking, even though, I mean, we're told now that the smoking rate in the country is like 5%, which I don't believe for a minute, by the way, but it's still one of the leading causes of death in this country, even though far fewer people smoke than they used to. I don't think smoking and gambling are really comparable in the damage that they sometimes cause.
I would argue they both cause harm.
I think in different ways, though. I think they're completely different ways.
Because you can you have a cigarette and you know that cigarette causes you damage, but if you have a $10 bet in the
overall scheme of things,
means nothing,
$10
right?
is not going to make any difference. Absolutely. And
unless
don't forget,
you don't have $10.
But then shouldn't we be looking at the reasons why people choose to gamble? Shouldn't we be focusing on how we can mitigate the risks? Because if you look at the statistics, a lot of people do it because of money stress in particular. It's number one. So that pertains to cost of living crisis. People can't afford to pay their bills, so they go, why don't I just go down to the local casino and give it a go, give it a crack? So shouldn't we be addressing the issues that actually lead people to gamble in the first place? And I don't think we need to go any further with reform than what we already have. I mean, it was only in the last 12 months that Labor introduced a suite of reforms. Gambling ads are capped at the moment in the country. They are banned during school drop-off and school pick-up. And I think that they are tough as they are. They literally smack you in the face. Every time you sit down, you know, you watch the AFL, it's gamble responsibly. Chances are you are going to lose. Do you want to really place that bet? So it's not like you're not getting the warning signs every single time there is a sports bet or a TAB ad. The warning signs are there, and I do think a lot of it does come down to personal responsibility. Now, there is a small percentage, as you mentioned, Caleb, that cannot control that. That is a different story. But for the vast majority of Australians, they are not addicted to gambling. So every time gambling reform comes up, we've got, oh, no, we've got to change everything. We've got to ban this, ban that. Where do we start? We start banning gambling ads. Then what's next? We ban everything to create a nanny state. People have to also take some personal responsibility in this country.
And there's a self-exclusion scheme. If you are addicted to gambling, you call up the number or go online or whatever it is, and you say, I need to stop gambling. And then that is handed to all the companies, and they are then meant to prevent you from gambling. They get into a lot of trouble if they don't do it after you put yourself on the register. So I think, you know, you can argue about, of course, advertising influences people, but all advertising influences people.
Well, you wouldn't pay for advertising if
Correct.
You didn't, right?
So why is one form of advertising worse than another, apart from the fact that you've made a moral judgment about the thing that it's advertising, right?
What about alcohol advertising?
Well, correct.
There's the, you know,
some people are alcoholics.
Vodka. There's, you know, is that going to be? Oh well, no, we have to ban alcohol advertising too because of the small percentage of the population who are addicted to alcohol.
I suppose the argument over gambling is specifically because in terms of sport, this is a relatively new phenomenon. Alcohol's been around forever, as has gambling, but sports gambling, where, I mean, I don't know if you've been to the footy, and the weirdest thing, like nothing's happening on the field, and then all of a sudden some guy behind you jumps to his feet and his mates are all jumping on top of him and they're all screaming because a player he had a bet on that he'd get 20 kicks rather than 19 got his 20th kick and they're celebrating. And so it's changed the nature.
I was probably one of them.
Yeah,
It's changed the nature of
that's Caleb.
sport,
I'm
right?
sure that wasn't Caleb on the television screen.
Or it was me watching a horse race while the footy was going on.
I guess because it's changed the nature of sport, and now as many of the young guys in our world who are watching sport because they love sport, they're also watching it because they've got 20 different games happening all within the same game, and it's the prevalence of it is unique right now.
Well, while we're talking about addictions, can we talk about one of your addictions, James?
Yes.
Because, you know, so James is not addicted to gambling. He's not addicted to drinking, even though he does now enjoy a drink or two. He loves a Shiraz or a Prosecco. But what are you addicted to, James?
Well, look, I was actually caught on the ABC at Pauline Hanson's National Press Club address. I had a glass of wine that I was just twirling on the table while
Glass
chewing,
of red wine,
yes,
to be specific.
while chewing gum.
Yes.
And my phone started lighting up with people from Rowan Dean to Andrew Bolt who saw it on television and thought, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Chewing wine. Drinking wine while chewing gum.
Exactly, and they weren't perturbed that you might be addicted to the wine. It's you're addicted to the chewing gum, right?
I am.
Yeah.
True.
James MacPherson chews gum all the time. In fact, he often comes into the studio here and realises he's still got some in his mouth and he's got to put it under the desk and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You put it on the bedpost. Remember that song, Does Your Chewing Gum Lose Its Flavour on the Bedpost Overnight? You might be able to answer that question, James, does it?
It does, yeah.
Well, there you go. It certainly loses its flavour if you put it on the floor, which has led Jamie Oliver, the celebrity chef, of course, to suggest that he wants chewing gum to be banned altogether because he's sick of seeing it spat on the footpath. He was interviewed by the UK Telegraph for something completely separate, but somehow they got onto the topic of chewing gum. And he said, if I could ban anything, it would be chewing gum. I was walking up the street the other day and the street was ruined by a patchwork quilt of chewing gum. I wouldn't ban a flavour combination. I would ban chewing gum, unless you could jet wash it off, but you can't. So there you go. Jamie Oliver says it should be banned altogether because some people spit it on the footpath. You know what? I think that's a bit ridiculous. Surely the problem is the people spitting the chewing gum on the footpath, not the chewing gum itself.
Well, it works in Singapore, doesn't it? And I was actually reading an article online because it's banned, obviously, in Singapore. And
the sale of it is banned.
The sale of it, but look how clean Singapore is. It's very, very clean. And I was actually reading an article in response to the Jamie Oliver call, and Singaporeans are apparently celebrating. They're saying, yes, Jamie Oliver, this is great news. Now, look, James, you know I'm very, very fond of you. James is a very, very good mate of mine. But, you know, there are times when I can hear it. I can hear the chewing, and I really...
You can hear him masticating.
I can hear him masticating, and I tell you what, it really irks me and it really gives me the ick, and I just try and like block it out I can hear it. It's in my eardrum. Big fan of yours, but I tell you what, the sound...
So are you saying that gum should be banned or just MacPherson should be banned from chewing gum?
I think MacPherson should be banned from chewing gum. No, I don't think it should be banned. I just think that people need to be polite and properly dispose of it and not do the James MacPherson, take it out of your mouth just before you go on set and put it somewhere in the vicinity. Sorry, James. It's just off-putting. It's sickening. Dispose of it correctly. It's not like chewing gum is that expensive, so I'm sure you can grab another packet of it out. I'm sure you can grab another one out of the chewing wrapper. You don't have to save your piece.
But what about the Singapore model? Do you agree with the Singapore model?
I actually think, yeah, it's great. I think Singapore is world-class standard for cleanliness, for good hygiene, and especially in a very humid place like Singapore, I think it's fantastic, and I think good on them because they've set the standards for the world. You go anywhere in the world, it's disgusting. Here in Australia, same deal.
So the answer is draconian bans.
I'm not saying ban it.
So that's how it works in Singapore. That's why it works.
Well, but they've had that in for a long time. I don't think you could just impose a ban suddenly out of thin air. Yeah, I just don't think that would work.
It's not all bad because, chewing gum does have purposes. I mean, it helps your concentration. It can be good for dental hygiene. It helps to reduce stress and you can make art out of it. Check out this guy.
Also known as the chewing gum man, Ben has been transforming discarded pieces of chewing gum into miniature works of art using inspiration from everyday Londoners or tourists who walk along the bridge, leaving colourful messages to loved ones, completely transforming litter.
I rest my point. How could you argue with that? That's magnificent.
Well, James, if you're looking for a new job, then may you please find some sort of, restitution in that.
Have you ever spat your chewing gum on the footpath?
No.
Good.
No.
I don't think so.
One thing I'll say for Singapore, even though I think a ban is utterly ridiculous, is that they do take a rather harsh tone on these sorts of things if and when they are done, and they'll lash you and cut fingers off and all. So we should do that. I reckon.
I don't think they cut fingers.
James would be
I'd go
James would lose all of his fingers if that was the case.
I reckon that's the sort of thing we should do for people who spit their chewing gum on the footpath. You can have the chewing gum, no problem.
Too loudly,
but that's it. Don't be a public masticator.
I feel like you two were keen to do that topic. Not because it was particularly newsworthy, so you just wanted to get some things off your chest about me. Let's move on, Danica.
In general, though, the sound of somebody chewing, that chewing noise, ooh.
As long as you're not chewing with your mouth open.
Exactly.
That's a real no-no. And I'm sorry to divert for a second. I saw a little while ago at a restaurant, there was a woman just chewing with her mouth open. And I thought, because she was with her bloke and kids, and I thought, how did he ever get past the first date? Because that would be like, that would just be so bad.
So is that a deal breaker for you then, Caleb?
Okay.
If you're on a date with a woman and she's mouth out,
okay, I'd have to make an assessment. If she was really attractive, I'd be like, has anyone ever told you not to chew with your mouth open, right? But if I thought, this is a lost cause, that would be it, right? And I thought, how'd they ever get past the first date? Then I saw the kids eating, and the kids were eating with their mouths open. And then I saw the guy eating, and he was eating with his mouth open. And I thought, how is this possible? So just don't be chew with your mouth open.
There you go. A lesson in hygiene tonight on the Late Debate, and especially from Caleb Bond. There you go. You learn something new about Caleb every night on this show. Now let's turn to something more serious. Nauru, of course, the Pacific island country, is changing its name. And it's also changed the spelling of its name. So as of today, it is no longer Nauru. It is Nauru. Nauru, spelt Naoero, the Republic of Nauru. Now, the decision has been made because it wants to return to a more traditional name. The country became known internationally as Nauru only because apparently its name was difficult for foreigners to pronounce, and it was a matter of convenience rather than choice. That's according to the local government there. The president of Nauru, David Adang, said this proposed change seeks to more faithfully honour our nation's heritage, our language and our identity. Now, look, I personally think that this Nauru is more difficult to pronounce than Nauru. Now, whether or not that's just because we're used to saying Nauru, but I think Nauru and the way that it's spelled, it's a very odd-looking spelling. Secondly, it follows a path of Turkey versus Turkey. Now, how many people do you know that honestly says Turkey? I feel like everyone just continues to say Turkey now. No one's following the traditional name of it. So again, I don't think I don't understand the purpose of this. And I hate to say it, but Nauru is only known for the place which processes offshore asylum seekers. So the fact that Nauru has gone through this big name change, no offence to Nauru.
Here it is.
But what?
I'm pretty sure for people who live in Nauru that it's known for a little more than a detention centre.
What do you know about Nauru?
18,000 is the population of Nauru.
Please give me a breakdown of what you know about Nauru.
Their major industry is phosphate. They made a lot of money from phosphate.
Okay, fine.
It's funded free education, free health, roads, airports.
Oh, you actually know a bit about Nauru.
Where do you get off for having an
third-
opinion on what another country call themselves?
I just don't see what the point is. Again, it's like Turkey A versus Turkey. Everyone is just going to say Turkey.
Hang on. You realise that nearly half of the countries in the world have a different name in their language to what we call them in English.
I know that, but what's the point of changing what works, Caleb? It's 2026.
Because it used to be their name.
But it's 2026.
It used to be their name.
Why bother changing it now?
The French rocked up and decided they didn't know how to say it.
Oh, here we go. So they want to erase things because of colonial. They're worried about the colonial past.
No. The French rocked up and changed the name because they didn't know how to say it, and they turned it into Nauru. Now, if the Nauruan people, or whatever they are now, the Nauero, but we will in Australia...
Nauru. So
we will in Australia and across the English-speaking world most probably continue to call them Nauru because that's what we know them as, right? In the same way that we don't call Deutschland Deutschland, we call Deutschland Germany.
I don't know. I feel like I would say Deutschland.
You call it Deutschland?
I feel like I would say Deutschland.
Why would you say Deutschland?
Because it's just a...
But aside from
funny.
But aside from the name doesn't work for you because you find it more difficult to
it's not that
pronounce.
it doesn't work for me.
What's-
I'm just
what's the
saying I
problem?
don't understand what the point of changing it is. And I also think
reflects
the
their cultural
pronunciation
roots.
and the spelling of it makes it even more complicated, just like Turkey A. No one's putting Turkey A with the little dots on the Y.
Yeah, I know.
But what are they called?
But the point is that Turkey A...
Go for it.
Turkey has always been Turkey A in their language. We only, as a woke thing after the war started and all the... Oh, we'll start using different names for them. It's rubbish, right? In English, it's Turkey.
So we're
in
erasing
country,
we're worried about the colonial past.
in
Is that
their
what
country,
we're saying?
no, in their country, it's Turkey A. Now, if the people of Nauru want to refer to their country in their language inside of their country, who am I to tell another country how to do its operations?
Look, you asked me for an opinion on it, and my opinion is I don't see why we need to change what works.
Well,
we
we're
need
not.
to suddenly
They are.
erase the modern history to go back to some sort of, years gone by to suit people because we all know what... Well, the French came in and they've changed everything. Just like when we say the Brits came in, and it's a whole cultural debate.
But if Aboriginal people made up the majority of the population of this country, I think they'd be within their rights to say, I want to change the name.
Well, I look forward to you constantly on this show saying Nauru and spelling it for us every single time we mention Nauru with it.
One thing is for
Incredible
sure,
history.
Danica will be sticking with
Nauru.
All right, there you go. You've made your point. All right, what about this one for flyers? There's a guy who flew from the US to London and he's created a storm online by complaining the hostess woke him up for a meal when he preferred to be asleep. He was asleep in business class and he reports that the hostie started shaking him aggressively to wake him up. The flight attendant said he woke him up to ask if you want to have breakfast. The man replied, "Why did you wake me up to ask that? If I'm sleeping, that means I don't want breakfast. Please don't do that to anyone in the future." Well, the flight attendant hit back that it was company policy to wake up passengers when breakfast was about to be served. If I've got a choice on a flight, I am definitely choosing to remain asleep than to be woken for breakfast because it is so difficult to get to sleep, especially on a long-haul flight. If you can find sleep, you want to sleep for as long as possible, and I would rather miss a meal than be woken up early. And I think the key to customer service is, good judgment. And surely if a hostie sees someone absolutely out to it, you leave them alone. If you see someone listening to music, then you might tap them on the shoulder and say, breakfast is being served. But if someone's asleep on a plane, let them sleep.
Well,
do you disagree with that? You're just disagreeable tonight.
No, I'm not disagreeable.
Hang on. James MacPherson told the woman on the panel she was disagreeable. Sound the klaxon! Sound the klaxon!
That's right. I'm reporting you. This is how dare you assume I'm disagreeable tonight. How dare you? What you forgot to mention though was that there was only 80 minutes left of the flight.
Yeah.
So an hour and 10 minutes was left.
An hour and 20.
An hour and 20 minutes. Sorry, an hour and 20 minutes. Maths was never a strong point. An hour and 20 minutes. So they were going from North Carolina to London Heathrow. So that's probably about 8 to 9 hours from the States to London. There wasn't that much time left anyway. They would have been getting ready for the cabin, to prepare the cabin anyway, to land as it was, so he would have had to have woken up at some point if he had a window seat, for example, the shades were down, he would have had to if he had his seatbelt on and off. So there are a number of variables at play. I am sure that 80 minutes left of his journey would not have been an inconvenience in the spate of an 8 to 9 hour flight. I understand that he was frustrated, but I think that he took it the wrong way. I think it was very rude of him. He was also flying business class, so was probably more comfortable than your average passenger anyway. There's all these Reddit pages that have been made about it, and the reviews are quite mixed on whether you should be woken up for food or not. But one flight attendant commented on the Reddit post. She said, if a passenger wants to be woken up for breakfast, I will try and wake them up gently. If they do not budge, I will leave them alone. And I think that's fair. And I think that is fair.
He says he was aggressively shaken.
Well, what's aggressively to him?
Well...
What physically was that level of aggression?
Room around like a rag doll.
Because was he literally shaken like this? You know what I mean?
That would be a beating, Danica.
No, but was it like a hard shake?
Yeah.
Wake up, you bomber!
Wake up. But I mean, or is he being dramatic because he was tired? You know when you're asleep and you're a bit disorientated? Was he disorientated?
Yeah, look, it's a catch-22, right? Because if you don't wake people up and offer them breakfast, they're then going to complain that they didn't get their breakfast. And then you do wake them up and then they complain that they've been woken up. So what's the answer? In fact, he did have a reasonable point, I think, this guy, that they could ask you at the dinner service whether you want to have breakfast, etc. Yeah. But it's a catch-22. What's the worst? What's the biggest evil? Not getting your food or being woken up? I'm not really sure, to be perfectly honest. It depends what they're offering. They're waking me up.
Depends what was for breakfast.
Well, if they're waking me up to offer me, a glass of champagne, I'm on board with that. But if they're wake me up to offer me some, soggy hotel-style scrambled eggs, we can shove it up your bum.
If you're in business class, if I was in business class, I would take all of the food that was being offered to me. Let me tell you that. I would take the steak, I would take the caviar, bring it on. I would take the whole kit and caboodle.
You paid for your fares. So you may as well get your...
Exactly. You may as well get your
If I'm in business class, I'm putting the seat right down and I'm sleeping the entire journey. So
you wouldn't get the free gourmet food that comes along with the business class ticket that you have paid for and you've paid a lot of money for?
No, I've paid for the chance to lie flat and sleep.
Why bother? Don't you go to business class for the whole experience?
Do you sleep any night of the week?
No, it's not a choice between sleeping any night of the week or sleeping on business class. It's a choice between in economy where you're cramped up like this.
God, sleep when you get to destination. Live a little, James. Live a little on that flight.
No, James needs his beauty sleep.
James, he's a precious man.
As we can see, he needs his beauty sleep. Now, there's been a bit of a row unfolding in the WNBA in the United States. That's, of course, the women's basketball. Because a player from the Indiana Fever, Sophie Cunningham, made comments recently about how she thinks that, transgender people shouldn't be competing in women's sport. Can you believe it? She said, I think that I'm here to extend love, but I also think that with love is truth, being honest, and I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Reasonably uncontroversial comment to make, I would have thought. But you see, the problem is that the WNBA is actually gaining a hell of a lot of traction now in the United States. They've just done a broadcasting rights deal worth more than $3 billion. And so with this extra attention is coming extra scrutiny, including from people within the WNBA who have taken great issue with what Ms Cunningham has said, including a number of coaches. Now, the most recent example, this was just a few days ago, they were playing Minnesota, her team, the Indiana Fever, were playing Minnesota, and the coach of the Minnesotan team, Cheryl Reeve, turned up in a shirt saying trans kids belong. Here it is.
We see Cheryl Reeve wearing a shirt today in support of trans kids. Trans kids belong on the shirt. This in the aftermath of Sophie Cunningham's recent comments.
It's pretty clear the point that she is trying to make there. And in the space of the past week, a number of other coaches have been involved in this too.
What is your stance on men or athletes who test as biological male participating in women's sports? What's your personal stance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would say that I'm educated enough from a scientific standpoint.
My focus as a basketball coach, I be completely honest. Like, I don't think I've ever had to think about that. I'm completely supportive of people from all communities, all walks of life. So that's my stance completely.
Sports is about belonging. It's about inclusivity. It's about allowing everyone to be their authentic self. So I'm all about women, little girls deserving to play, and that includes trans women.
That includes trans women. I mean, so player makes a really straightforward comment, and I suppose she's proven why you have to make straightforward comments, because all of these people in the league jump on, as senior people, coaches, jumping on board and saying, well, actually, I think men should be playing in the WNBA. I thought they already had the NBA.
Well, you know what? I would ask any of those coaches how they would feel if their team, who are all women, were biological women, were playing up against a team which had biological men who identify as women in their league. And their team kept losing every single time they played the league with the trans players in there. How would they feel about those comments? Would they go, oh, look, well, that's all right. They can be whoever they want to be. How would they feel about losing every single time? How would they feel about their biological women in their team being outplayed by men who are naturally bigger, can outrun them, are physically going to outplay them? How would they feel about that? I'd love to know their opinion.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is stunning, and so is the cowardice with these coaches saying, well, you know, they don't answer the question directly. I'm about inclusion, I'm about belonging. Well, we're all about inclusion and belonging, and men are very welcome to be included where they belong, which is in the men's league, if they are biologically men. It should be pointed out that Sophie Cunningham was asked a question. She wasn't grandstanding on this issue, though fair enough if she was grandstanding, but she was asked a question by a reporter. She gave an answer that 15 years ago would have been a non-event. Shows how quickly the world has changed. And I should point out as well, and Caleb alluded to it, she was quite gracious. She said that she loves everybody, but she just doesn't believe biological men belong in women's sport or locker rooms. And for that, she's been absolutely demonised, but good on her for sticking to her grounds. The Guardian accused her of, you know, you're a conservative, you say politics should stay out of sport, and now you've brought politics into sport. Well, when you want biological men to play in your sport, politics has already arrived, right? So when you respond to that, you're not playing politics, you're simply trying to keep the purity of your sport pure, but she's accused of being the one who's politicised it.
And the other thing is have any of these coaches stopped to think about what it would be like for their own women's-only locker rooms, women's-only bathrooms, women's-only toilets being overrun by players who are biological men? How would they feel about that? Would they be okay with that? Again, the hypocrisy stinks to high heavens on
Mind you, LeBron has now figured out what he's going to do when he's too old for the NBA.
What?
Identify as a woman and play in the WNBA.
And play in the W... Well, fair enough.
They're all saying he's welcome.
Yeah.
Give it a go.
Give it a go. Now, look, let's go over to New York now, where the socialist mayor, Zoran Mamdani, you may have heard last week his big, bright initiative. He wants to introduce state-run grocery stores. Yes, line up in your Soviet bread line to get your 30% subsidised bread, meat, pantry items. But here is the catch. He's also claimed that in order to receive your subsidised items, you need to produce some identification.
This is a program for New Yorkers to be able to put food on the table, not a program for people to be able to make a quick buck through reselling.
We are looking to make sure that we target New Yorkers, whether it be at sort of a library card-esque, and also we manage who's buying, and that is focused on everyday New Yorkers.
So New York requires ID right now to, 1, get a book from a library, 2, apply for food stamps, 3, shop at the city-run grocery store, and 4, adopt a pet. But what do you not need a government-run ID for? To vote. That's right. You don't need to vote to ensure safety and security around elections. You don't need a vote. And in fact, when it's been brought up as part of the SAVE Act, which is what Donald Trump has been pushing for, the Democrats have been saying, oh, well, you're a bigot for even suggesting that you need an ID. How dare you? Because, of course, You know, they love the illegal immigrants. That they love. That's how they rig the system over in the States. I find this so ironic. The hypocrisy stinks to high heaven because. You literally are saying to people, you can get your 30% subsidised bananas, but cough up your ID for it. But voting, you don't need to. And Zoran Mamdani also asked for ID when he said to people, if you want to volunteer to shovel snow back in December last year. So ID for everything except for actual what you need ID for.
Well, it's ID when it helps his political platform and no ID when it helps his political platform. I think that's his policy.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what more needs to be said? The point has been made, right? If you don't think you need ID to go and vote, but you need ID to buy groceries, your priorities are pretty warped. Hey, before we go to the break, can I give the yay for the day, as John Laws would have once done, to a woman by the name of the Enforcer, Wendy the Enforcer Blair. Now, she used to work at BWS. In fact, she's just been allowed to go back and work at BWS. She was working at BWS at a shop in Tasmania, and they had a little problem one day where some young fellas came into the shop to try and rob it. She was working in the shop, and in the process of trying to get them out of the shop, she wound down the roller door on the front of it, and one of these guys then threw a bottle at one of her co-workers. So she was then sacked by Endeavour, which is the parent company of BWS, because she said that they said that she had put her co-worker in danger. The company policy is that you don't interfere in theft, and that by putting the roller door down, which then apparently led to this bottle being thrown, she put someone in danger, and they sacked her. So she went off to Fair Work to fight the case, and the Fair Work Commission has said that she can have her job back because indeed she did not break the rules. They found that because she was known as the enforcer by her colleagues, because she'd done this sort of stuff before, and they'd even put a sign out the front of the shop calling her the enforcer, which BWS had allowed to stay there, that they'd already implicitly endorsed this kind of behaviour, and there was no evidence that her closing the roller door actually led to them throwing the bottle. So good on her for taking the fight up, I reckon, because all she tried to do was defend her employer, and if that's what gets you the sack, trying to stop someone from robbing the shop that you work in, we're in a pretty wibbly-wobbly world, I reckon.
And good on the Fair Work Commission for a good decision. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we'll look at what's making headlines tomorrow, including Jetstar. They're meant to be the affordable airline, but wait until you hear what they're going to start charging passengers for. That's coming up after the break. OK, here's what's making headlines in tomorrow's papers, and I cannot believe the story on the front page of tomorrow's Daily Telegraph. Hurt Lockers reads the headline, Jetstar charges you $52 to stash luggage overhead.
What?
Jetstar passengers will soon have to pay to store carry-on bags in overhead lockers in a move that has failed to fly with the low-cost airline's customers. A minimum charge of $25 on domestic flights and up to $52 for international flights on top of the ticket price will be brought into effect from February, a change Jetstar says aligns with budget carriers around the world. Smaller bags such as handbag, backpack or laptop that can fit under seat will continue to be free to bring on board under the move, or I guess for now.
That's ridiculous.
That is nuts.
What a rort. What an absolute rort. There's a reason why you go for a budget carrier. They go, not even Ryanair does stuff like that over in Europe.
And they
do blow the windows out the side of the plane.
Oh, yeah, but they get you with the cheap fare, right? So you think, oh, that's way cheaper than Qantas or Virgin. So then you start the booking process.
Yeah.
And then you realise, oh, I've got to add this, add this, add this. And if you don't do it online, then you get to the terminal.
And they'll charge you even more.
And they charge you a mozza.
This is the problem with having basically two operators, Qantas and Virgin, and of course Jetstar is Qantas. They can do whatever the hell they want. A third player cannot come fast enough. There's another story on the front of the telly, James.
Sorry, I was just sitting there aghast at what Jetstar are doing. The other story on the front page of the Telegraph that Caleb reminded me of is temporary visas soar. The number of temporary bridging visas in Australia has more than doubled over the past 3 years, partly due to an explosion of international students appealing rejected visas. There's nearly 413,000 people on temporary bridging visas as of June 30 this year, according to newly released figures from Home Affairs. So almost 500,000 people waiting to have some sort of visa dispute resolved in the meantime on bridging visas. That's a lot of people and a huge backlog in the system.
And, of course, none of them are living in houses that could otherwise be inhabited by Australians. On the front of the Courier Mail tomorrow says, truth bomb on the way. The Bureau of Meteorology's disastrous rollout of its $96 million website revamp will be examined as part of a review into the $600 million a year agency. The bomb was widely panned last October after the makeover that left users unable to navigate the site. At the time, Queensland Premier David Crisafulli blamed the flawed website for leaving Brisbane residents unprepared. Then in January, bomb-operated rain and river gauges went offline during the deadly Channel Country floods. The independent review, which will be led by former Murray-Darling Basin Authority Chief Philip Glyde, will aim to, quote-unquote, future-proof the bomb. And remember when they didn't want to be called the bomb anymore? They wanted to be called the Bureau.
The Bureau.
It's high time they had an investigation, I think, but do we really hold out any hope that this is going to return anything that is acted upon? Or is it another thing that ends up in the bottom drawer when they go,
yes,
yes,
and how much is this review going to cost as well? It's already cost so much money on top of everything else. Let's take a look at the Australian tomorrow up the top there. Premier's water bombshell, secret Labor privatisation plan. The Victorian Labor government has secretly spent 5 years exploring the privatisation of Melbourne's water assets in a bid to rescue the state's deteriorating finances. Confidential cabinet documents reveal ministers were warned that the politically explosive proposal to raise billions of dollars posed a major reputational risk if it became public. The documents obtained by the Oz show former Premier Jacinta Allen and senior ministers in 2024 approved a 12-month business case codenamed Project Nerva to investigate bringing private investors into Melbourne Water, the state-owned authority that owns almost $18 billion worth of dams, pipelines, treatment plants and other water infrastructure. I mean, seriously, the Labor government in that state, through every fault of its own, has set the state broke, it's set the state backwards, and it is having to explore these sorts of measures to save its own backsides.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. No wonder they wanted to keep it secret.
Of course they did.
People will be ropeable when they read about this. But eventually you run out of money, so you've got to start selling assets.
But this is the same government that brought back the State Energy Commission, didn't they? Because, you know, we have more things in public hands, but, you know, when they go, oh, geez, we're out of money, we should have less stuff in public hands. Which one is it?
Yeah. All right, front page of tomorrow's Herald Sun, cut the loop. Still speaking of Victorian waste, poll reveals voters want $34.5 billion suburban rail loop dumped, with almost 70% backing the airport line. I won't bother reading the article because I've just, in the subheading, explained the story. Anyone who's been to Melbourne recently would know Melbourne desperately needs a train from the airport into the city. You're stuck with the, what do they call the Sky Bus?
Sky Bus,
the Sky Bus isn't bad, though.
Oh, but have you heard the announcement?
Once you get through
you're on stolen land.
Oh, yeah, it's a woke bus, yeah.
So you can either get the woke bus or you get a taxi or an Uber, and it takes you 10, 15 minutes in peak hour to get out of the airport precinct. It's a horrible airport for getting out of. Build a railway line. Most voters want that.
Yeah, I know. It's meant to be global city. On the front of the Advertiser tomorrow, your right to know, or perhaps not in this case. A courts administrator has used the Malinowskis government's Crown Solicitor's Office to criminally charge the Advertiser over naming a child sexual material offender working at an elite Adelaide girls' school, quote-unquote, too early. It sparked a taxpayer-funded prosecution over your right to know that a magistrate had granted Riley McGuinness bail. And you'll remember last week we told you about how people in the court system had used AI to make up images of a reporter at the Advertiser allegedly being arrested for contempt of court which he hadn't been, for breaking this suppression order. And the court has refused to cooperate with the police on that matter because it is actually an offence to do those sorts of things. But meanwhile, the paper, oh my God, they revealed the name of a person who's been looking at a child sexual abuse material. We'd better go and charge them. These are the priorities of the justice system, apparently.
Extraordinary. Quick look at the Mercury now. Scrolling for staff. Tasmanian school principals have resorted to advertising teaching positions on social media as a survey reveals understaffing is gripping our public schools. I personally find this very unprofessional. I think if you are going to advertise for a role, it's on Seek or it's on LinkedIn. You don't start putting it on Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, it would make sense to put it on Instagram and Facebook to me. That's where everyone is.
Why? Don't you think that's unprofessional?
I think you've got to reach people where they're at.
But it's a social media app you use to post what you're doing on the weekend.
So why is LinkedIn okay?
Because LinkedIn is a professional app for workers.
It's social media.
No, it's not. It's a professional app for workers.
But it has an area specifically for putting job ads up. But I think that the difference is, what it shows is that they're so desperate to find staff that they're essentially having to put ads in positions where they find people. Whereas traditionally, if you're looking for a job, you'd go to a job vacancy board and put in the job you wanted and see if anyone has a job for you. I think it probably indicates how bad things are in terms of trying to recruit teachers more than anything else.
All right, I'm not sure if my son is watching the program tonight. I hope he is, because he's studying nursing. And after the break, we're going to show you Brisbane's ninja nurse. I'm not kidding, they've got a ninja nurse in Brisbane. That's next. Well, Caleb Bond, the nurses in Brisbane are something else, aren't they?
They are. Look, I told you earlier about this poor woman who worked at BWS who got sacked for trying to defend her workplace. This bloke, I hope, does not meet the same fate. Daniel Nelson, take a look at this vision, who is a practitioner of jiu-jitsu, has taken someone down in the emergency department who was trying to get rowdy and carry on. Now, this vision actually goes all the way back to October 2024, 2 in the morning, but he's recently put it up on social media. And, you know, he's demonstrated that, you know, they often have to deal with absolutely terrible people who come into these emergency departments, whacked out of their brains on drugs and whatever. You know, thank God you got someone like Daniel Nelson there to spring into action, and another yay for the day,
well, to
get the jiu-jitsu moves out.
He's the enforcer.
He's the enforcer of the hospital.
He's the nurse enforcer.
I reckon put him on the front door. You know, he might be a great nurse, but he would be very valuable on the front door.
Well, the good thing is he can beat you up and then he can tend to your wounds. So it's perfect.
Inflicted by him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We need more of that. You know?
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, what we don't need more of is the Victorian Labor government. You remember their machete bin debacle? It cost millions for machete bins that really only got lawful people to submit their weapons. It turns out that the Victorian government, in developing these bins, contracted a defence and security company who normally make military-grade weapons and aircraft to design the bins. They paid them $42,287 to oversee the design of the bins. What's funny about that is, do you remember the Liberal MP Nick McGowan, who bought a $9 tool from Bunnings and broke into one of these machete bins to show how easy it was, and yet the Victorian government spent $42,000 with a military company to design them. And they've got security people within the Victorian Police Force.
Unbelievable.
How difficult could it be to design a bin?
It's almost like it was doomed from the beginning.
It's another day in Victoria, though. We say this every night. It's another day in Victoria.
But it's okay because they can sell all their water assets to help.
That's right. They've got the solution to it. Now, we've got to end on some adorable vision. Dog surfing. Okay, this is absolutely gorgeous. Look at this. Look at this. This was at Linda Mar Beach. It's in Pacifica. This is in California, where crowds gathered to watch these little pooches compete against each other on the waves. This is the 10th annual World Dog Surfing Championships. Oh, look at them. Surf City, here we come.
I don't think
Two girls for every dog.
I don't think they look terribly pleased to be surfing myself.
Oh, but look.
He looks scared.
He does. That dog, you cannot tell me that dog wants to be surfing. Now, he looks happy. He looks happy because he's on the beach. He's not in the water on the surfboard. They do not look like they want to be out there surfing.
Is this a legit competition?
This is a legit This is a 10th annual dog surfing competition.
But how is that a competition? Like, the dog's not doing anything.
Well, I guess who can stay on the board the longest?
You can have a dog race because the dogs race against each other. They actually run. But like, what's that?
I tell you what would be better is cat surfing. I would be keen to watch that because they would go feral.
Well, they would go. At least it would be a little more entertaining, perhaps. But if you asked me, that's bordering on animal cruelty.
I agree. Danica, shame on you. That's all we've got time for tonight. Stick around. Here's Rita Penny. She's next.